There's no guilt for his bloodshed. All right, so this is dealing with theft. I think we mentioned something in chapter 21 about kidnapping, something like that. Right, so what do we do when we find a thief breaking in? Do we try to preserve his life and tell him don't do it? Or do we tell him that we are here, we are watching you, so turn back? Or do we surprise him and scare him away? This text is actually suggesting that, you know, if you actually unalive this thief, there is no blood guilt. That's in chapter 2. So basically it is saying, the owner is not going to be guilty. In a break-in scenario, usually it's dark, and that is a dangerous time. And a thief sometimes will actually go to the extent of endangering your life to actually get what he comes for, even if it means to protect his identity. And so if that person is struck by the owner of the house, then there is no guilt. But remember, we'd have mentioned that the commandment of capital punishment for taking a life is a life for a life. But how do we know the intent of the thief? That this thief is only coming to get to take away what you have. This is actually assuming that this thief will come and take away what you have and will actually harm you if you try and stop him. So under that case, you can actually unalive the thief. Right? So there's no guilt for that. No hesitation when somebody crossed the border. Right. Let's read verses 3 to 4. If the sun has risen on him, there is guilt for his bloodshed. He shall certainly repay. If he has not the means, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft is indeed found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he repays double. Okay, so still on the topic of theft. It's like it was a big thing then, and unfortunately it's still a big thing now. You catch the thief get away, but you catch the thief with your animal, your possession. That thief is to pay you double. But it is recommended that both parties come before a judge. I think in verse 8, you see where it says, if the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought before a judge. Well, this case says Elohim, right? To see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. Right? So some of these thieves will do their thing in night, but there are some what they call a bare-faced thief, and these will try and do it even when the sun hot in the bright of day. They will try to rob from you. Right? If you do that in the day, then and you unalive that thief, then blood guilt will fall on the person who did the unaliving. Because so you see the one that does it in the night, you see the treatment is different for the thief that dealing with the thief in the day versus the thief in the night. The one in the night, you have no guilt to unalive that person. But the one in the day, you catch that person, and you will be guilty for taking that thief's life. But sometimes when you catch the thief, there's a restitution. In other words, he has an opportunity to pay, right? He has an opportunity to pay back. And in some cases they can't, then this thief can be put into servitude. In other words, make that thief a slave. So he work for you until he can pay you back what he stole from you. If the animal that he stole from you is still alive, then the thief is to pay double. And in other words, I think when we started reading this chapter in verse 1, it says when the animal is slaughtered, the person is to repay 5 times for an ox and 4 times for a sheep. But if the animal is found alive, then it's not 4 times or 5 times. It's actually double. So it's it's better. It's not so bad for the thief after all in this situation, even though stealing is sin. Right? So the animal is alive, you repay with a live. You pay with live animals. All right. So we are wondering now, why is it that there's a difference for the thief that steals after sunrise? And is it really reasonable and fair to sell the thief because he cannot pay? Is it loving? And does the thief deserve to be treated with love? Well, it's not bad as taking the life of the thief. I think it's better to sell the thief rather than to take the life of the thief. It's one is more reasonable. So his repayment is really working, and this aligns with the Torah's focus on restitution and responsibility rather than long-term imprisonment. Because nowadays, when somebody steals and you put them in prison, they get in 3 square meals a day, and basically you're rewarding them for what they do. So I think what is done today is worse than what Torah recommends prescribes is much better than putting the person in prison and feeding that person 3 times a day to just sit down like that. Right? And it's not so justified to take their life. That doesn't really help the situation or bring back justice and restoration. Sorry, the double payment for the alive animal, it kind of covers the breaches of trust and they cover the claim that the person would have. So being in the judge's position, that asking the thief to repay double, I think that is strong enough to deter them from wanting to repeat it, and it will also prevent the person who is a victim from doing a false claim sometime. Sometimes they carelessly handle their property and want to blame people for theft. All right. There are some honest people around, right? And sometimes they are blamed. All right. So the good thing is that there is a court system and a judge, and there will be need for a witness. So that will kind of help to guard against the fraud and misrepresentation. So it's very, very good to have a witness. Let's read verses 5 and 6. You're going to realize that each of these commands, maybe like just one verse stating it and another verse explaining it. And if we were to read beyond that, then we may just forget the original verse. When a man lets a field or vineyard be grazed bare and lets loose his livestock and it feeds it in another's another man's field. He repays from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. When fire breaks out and spreads to thorn bushes, so that stacked grain or standing grain or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall certainly repay. So this is the law concerning stray animals. We touched a little bit on that, stray animals. And it's also dealing with how you deal with the field and how you deal with fire. So just looking at it, if a person's livestock lets loose, all right, and it goes into another person's farm and eat up all the person's plant, you must repay that person with plants that were destroyed. And a matter of fact, not just any plants, but you're to repay with the best of your field. Back then, everybody would be expected to have a field or a vineyard. I do not know if you need to give back the person land or it's just field. It's he repays from the best of his own field and the best of his vineyard. So that's two things I'm seeing there. So we must be careful not to let our animals let loose and go into another man's field, because not only that you're liable or subject to pay back with the best of your field, you might be required to pay back with real estate, the best of your real estate. That kind of look, that's far more valuable than getting back your crops, But if I was around that time, it would be good for your animal to come into my field, because knowing that my field has the best crops there are, then if you can replace those crops, then I'll get a piece of your land. And the key is restitution. You repay with the best of your land, and that I think is very, very, very justified. There's another issue, not just loose animals, but fire. Suppose you're burning. You call it, some farmers have to clear land, and you burn to rid of the pests. You have a responsibility to sit down and watch that fire until that fire dies out. You can't just light your land and go home or sleep, because if that wind blows and spreads that fire right into another person's place, then you have a response. You have to pay, because you're negligent, and there's no excuse for that, to say that it's a fire or the wind blow the fire. Right. So that is the law regarding fire. But we need to pick up what the principle behind it is. Every commandment we look at, we must find out what's the principle behind such and such law. The principle is basically we must learn to be responsible for hazards, that especially for hazards that we start, right? And just be careful enough that it does not destroy somebody else's work. So that is it basically. In today's society, you have in businesses, there are a lot of negligence. Sometimes you see big corporations, they let go their chemicals in the river, along the streams, and it affect the fish and affect persons who drink from that water or bathe in that water. People use it for recreational activities, and sometimes they just get a little slap on the hand from the environmental watchdog. But we have to understand, any situation where our choices harm others' property or livelihood, that we need to ensure that they are adequately repaid for it. Are we going to read 7 to 15? When a man gives silver or goods to his neighbor to guard, and it is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he repays double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought before Elohim to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. For every matter of transgression, or for ox, for donkey, for sheep, for garment, or for whatever is lost which another claims to be his, Let the matter of them both come before Elohim. And whoever declares wrong repays double to his neighbor. Verse 10. When a man gives his neighbor a donkey or ox or sheep or any beast to watch over, and it dies or is injured or is driven away while no one's looking, let an oath of the Creator be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that, and he does not repay. But if it is indeed stolen from him, he repays to its owner. If it is torn to pieces, then let him bring it for evidence he does not repay what was torn. And when a man borrows from his neighbor, and it is injured or dies while the owner of it is not present, he shall certainly repay. But if its owner was with it, he does not repay if it was hired. He is entitled to the hire. And when a man, okay, we'll stop there because it's a lot of commandments we're seeing right there. And if we're to read through, we might forget some or miss some. Reading this just feels like I'm reading something legal, and it takes a lot of focus and attention to study law. Right? So let's look at these. We continued from what verse was it verse 7 that we continued from, to see if we can just catch up on some of what we skimming through. When a man gives silver or gold to his neighbor to guard it and it's stolen, that's really an unfortunate situation. You give somebody something to put up for you, and you return for it, and the person say, somebody stole it. Question is, do we believe that person, or do we accept what the person says and move on? Well, the remedy here is basically we're to set out to find that thief, and if we do not find that thief, then the owner of the house shall come near, and he will actually have to put his hand into his neighbor's goods. It says that we have to bring that person before the court to see if this person is really talking the truth. Because it may be that person that you gave the thing to keep, that maybe that's the person that is the person that stole it as well. And that would be a breach of trust. Both of them must come before the Creator, and one whom is condemned shall pay double, because somebody is not talking the truth. And they are to swear an oath. I think it's in 11 that says that they are to swear an oath. And whoever is found to do that, that person must repay. Restitution must be paid to the owner. But does it state how much the person need to repay to the owner? It would be good to see, how much is it. But we have to be careful who will, what I can learn from this is that we have to be careful who we leave to safeguard or safekeep things for. Right? And we have to be careful who we keep things for too. Because they may be the only one that know that you have something valuable, and they send back something to steal it. I heard of the case of the person who went to somebody to rent a car, and that person actually paid somebody else to go and steal the car. Right? The same person who rent the car paid somebody else to track the car and to steal the car from the person who they rented to. No, this is gross dishonesty, and these are the things that happen in society. And you want to always that people come up with these deceptive, cruel ideas. So that's where the matter of you'd have to go to court and to plead your case and to prove innocence or to accuse the person if you're the person that made a loss. The main thing is that it must go before a judge. All right. What about an animal? You're keeping an animal for somebody. Let it be, for example, a dog. People, there are other dog lovers around. You keeping an animal for somebody and the animal died, or the animal just wanders off and you can't find. It's not deliberate. So you as a safekeeper must swear an oath and say that I really don't know. I'm not the one that did this. I didn't know where the dog disappeared. Right? That way, the checks will be done. But sometimes it's a case where the dog may die, or the animal. I keep using dog. An animal may die from a natural cause. Whoever was keeping that dog must swear innocence, and that person must not be held liable. And that's what we see in verses 10 and 11. But if it's stolen, of course, the person is to make restitution. And sometimes, persons are careless, for want of a better word. And if you were careless, then you should be, should, by right, you really should make it your duty to guard properly, something that somebody asks you to watch over for you. So that is one aspect of it. What about the matter of borrowing something that is something from somebody, and it becomes damaged, or you borrow an animal and the animal die? You must take full responsibility because the thing was entrusted in your care. But there's a loophole for this. If I borrow your car and you're here with me and I scratch the car while you're in it, I do not need to repay you for that car because you are there. So when the owner is present, as we see in verses 14 and 15, right? 15 says, but if the owner was with it, he does not repay. So in other words, it's a matter of whether the owner is there, yes or no. All right, so that's where we're through to 15. And the question here, what does this teach about being a safekeeper? And it is simple. When you are entrusted with someone else's property, you must be honest. If it was stolen and the thief is found, the thief is to pay double. But if not, you may need to swear before the judge that you did not steal. Right? So nothing is wrong with swearing. In some cases, an oath might just be enough. You don't need to pay back anything. Because when people swore back then, people swore because they feared the Creator. And when you that's why I think in the court system today, I think persons are probably still asked to swear on the Bible. If you swear and you are telling a lie, you're actually inviting, the Creator's judgment on you. Right? And when you swear, it shows that the innocent person that was keeping the thing for you, nobody else. Once we see that person swear, that means that we don't need to continue harboring suspicion about that person. Once the person swear, then you can just say, it's not the person, because the person not supposed to swear if the person fears the Creator. And of course, if there is negligence by a safekeeper, then that person must pay. And if you borrow something and it's damaged, you must pay back for it. But if the owner was there, you don't have to pay for it. All right, so there's a lot of sideways and loops to actually get away from paying, and certain situations where you just definitely have to pay. I'm hoping, that if I borrow something from somebody or somebody asks me to keep something and it's damaged, I'm just hoping that if anything bad happens, at least there's a witness. Because if there's a witness, then, hopefully I can get away from that situation, because it should show that I was not negligent, and it would show that I did my best. And if nobody's there, then I can swear right? And if I swear and the person recognizes that I fear the Creator, then nobody should be continuing to suspect me or treat looking at me and whispering when I'm walking or anything like that, because I'd have done my part. Let's go to the virgin situation now, verse 16 and 17. It says, when a man entices a maiden who is not engaged and lies with her, he shall certainly pay the bride price for her to be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he pays according to the bride price of maidens. Let me just put it out there. All men want virgins. Right? Excited by the idea of having a virgin. Right? And some will go to the extent of seducing the virgin. And when I say seduce, meaning that they suspect that the virgin is not interested in the advances for intimacy, and maybe use sweet words or make highly valuable promises. What else can be done? Well, no. Anybody else know? All right. In that case, if the maiden yields to the situation and once they engage in relations, then he shall certainly pay the bride price for her to be his wife. So it's not free, right? Nothing in life is free. They always say nothing is life in life is free except for salvation. So the father, well, there's this view that is posited that once two persons engage in relations, that's a marriage. Is there a perspective on that? Anyone wish to share? Or more is required?
Well, what I'm seeing here is if he enticed her and they committed the act, and the father refuses to give her unto him, then he shall still pay the money, but she can be the wife of whoever her father chooses. That's what I'm getting from it.
Okay, so the father.
Even though the father is in charge. So even if she fell in love with him and he's not who her father chose for her, he can decide whether or not he will give his daughter to him.
Is that fair? Well,
the father decides, Remember
decides.
when not Rebecca, sorry. You remember when Tamar, Judah and Tamar,
yes.
She went back to her father's house.
You're right.
And her father had the right to give her and to whoever he chose, but she was waiting for Judah's son. In the case with David, Saul took David's wife and sold her to another husband because the father has the right to do that.
Okay. Right. So the father has the best interest at heart for the daughter. But what about today where the father is not around? Who decides? Is that the maiden decide for herself, or can the mother say then accept the bride price and make a decision?
It depends on what area you're in and the upbringing, because in Kingston, some females have no choice, especially in the garrison areas.
In the ghetto.
The Don decides.
The Don decides, all right. So a decision must be made. All right, so let's get some other additional reference regarding this. In Deuteronomy 22, verse 29, it says the father accepts the money. The father can accept the money and give the daughter in marriage. Well, so that is the same thing, right? That is the same thing. So, and the father can refuse and still take the money, as you had said. So, why is it that the money is placed on all the organs? Well, it's not organ; it's really a relationship there. Sure, but it says when if the slave eye is damaged, value is put on it. If the ear is damaged or the person is set free because of full value is paid once the person gets damaged on the job. Right here, we're seeing that um, in the context of this, it was 50 shekels was the price for a maiden, right? And persons get the idea. I wonder if that's where the people today who clearly involved in organ transfers and sale, if that's where they got it from. People selling organs on the black market, heart, liver, kidney, for transplant and replacement. Right now there are persons waiting to be donated, and I'm just wondering if people will just go.
Maybe it has gotten to that state because there is a term. I would give an arm or a leg. So I don't know if that was the case back then.
Yeah.
And now they upgrade to kidney and heart and other organs.
Yes. Well, those I can understand, but on the vagina, people put price on it, millions and billions.
It seems like everything was for sale back then. Virgins and oxnard, everything seems to have been on sale.
So the question should be, what's not for sale? It just seems immoral to me to have to pay for these things. It should be free. If somebody wants to give freely, I believe, but their people's values are different, and so we can't you have to just accept what the instruction says. I think I brought up the idea of what constitutes a marriage. It might not be fully what this focuses on, but does a ketubah is a ketubah or a bride price needed for marriage? And do we see that in all cases in Torah? Or are we just seeing it in this particular case? I think in the case with yeah, go ahead.
I think for virgins, you have to pay a bride price, but for a woman that has been with her husband before and her husband died,
she should be free.
I think there would need to be for a bride price.
Give me a price, man. Give me a price.
That was divorced.
Give me a price, my sister.
Pardon me?
Put a price on the woman, man. Don't let her go free.
I don't think
you're not gonna yield to that.
There should be a price on her.
Okay, all right. Thanks for.
So I think only virgin, but I don't know if a dowry is being paid for a woman who has been married before.
No, we don't see it. We don't see it in scripture. We don't see it in scripture.
No, don't see that.
Right, but what about Adam and Eve? Adam didn't pay anything.
I don't know.
Well, we don't know. It's not there. I'm sure it's not. We can't say we don't know. It's not there. And also, I'm trying to find out who else didn't pay any money. Well, we see Jacob paid 7 years for each for his wives. We saw his father Yitzhak. Eliza went to a family and gave some nose rings and some jewelry and some gift. Abraham, did he pay for
so
his?
A man with many daughters then can become very rich.
Yes, can you imagine if I was in Yethro's position with 7 daughters? I'd be a millionaire right now. I have one. I'm not gonna say only one, but I'd love to have 6 more. Right? I hope my daughter doesn't hear me. But I'd like to have get 6 more because that's there's big money in this business. All right, getting back to it now. right? So the father, we see the father's role is very important, and the ketubah is an important marriage document. So we hear like a particular group, I think it's the Rastafari, they usually suggest that you just take a woman and call her your wife, and you don't need to. The view is that you do not need to put the government in between you and your wife. Anybody you need to put is the creator. So basically, you find somebody you are attracted to. Well, some say find somebody who is you can do transaction with, rather than attraction, and you pray together, and both of you commit to each other, and you live together, and that's it. What would be wrong with an arrangement like that? Do they need a contract to sign something, or to go pay the RGD some money about it, and then whenever they're ready to break up, they go to RGD and pay again? What support, what benefit does the RGD has to do when it comes to a righteous marriage, one aligning with Torah? So we have to face it now. We have to look at these things. Not a case where we're trying to save money from government, but do we really need that for it to be a righteous marriage? Any view on that, Sister J? All right.
What I can say is, in our time, the reason why I would agree with the RGB situation,
yes,
is because you have nobody plans to break up, but then it does happen, and sometimes the wife is left with nothing at all.
Right, because all men are evil.
And so, yes, some men are very cruel, and they'll just put the wife out without giving her anything. So the law actually helps to ascertain that the wife at least is compensated for her time, and whatever she may have contributed to the marriage while she was with the man, both of them together, she is at least compensated and not left unprotected or in destitution.
Right, and that is the spirit of the Torah, to protect women, especially. Tell me now, do you see anywhere where inheritance is passed on to a wife or a daughter when a son is around? Anywhere in Torah?
No.
And I think that is deliberate, because women,
I don't recall.
Because what happens is that when you marry a woman and you die, what is the natural occurrence, whether or not she is hurt for long or take long to get over, she's going to find a man and give that property to that man. There's no doubt about that. So the ownership of that property in the family line goes to another family line. And so while it's very important for women to be protected, that is something that is really a law that is not in Torah, for them to get property. We see where Abraham protected his wife adequately, and he even bought a plot for her just in case he dies before her, so that her life will be honored properly, right? But outside of that, there's no. And that's why it's always good to have a son, because when a man has a son, he can give that to the son, knowing that that property is not supposed to go over to another man, because a man must work for his own. And a man who takes care of a woman or takes a widow, he must not be taking a widow to get what the widow received from her deceased husband. He should have the capacity to provide home and coverage for her. And that's why we don't see in Torah where there is inheritance law specified for widows or women, largely. The instance with Zipporah, Zelophehad's 5 daughters, was unique, because that practice wasn't in place. They had to go and protest and say, look, we don't have any uncle, we don't have no brother, so therefore we don't have anything, help us out. And so a special provision was made for them. All right, that's enough divergence from the bride price that is mentioned here, and the father refusing. Let's go to 18 to 20. And do not allow a practice of witchcraft to live. Anyone lying with a beast shall certainly be put to death. He who slaughters to an Elohim, except to the Creator only, is put under the ban. So here we're talking about sorcery, witchcraft. Here we're talking about bestiality. And here we're talking about sacrificing to other gods. This is no light matter. Witchcraft is practiced in many ways. You have persons, once somebody prays to another god other than the Creator, that to me is witchcraft. And even persons not today, even say, for example, those who practice Christianity, the idea of drinking somebody's blood and eating somebody's body, those things are not, those things are aligned with witchcraft. Sometimes they pray over scarves and put it over your head and put it on your body to wear and all those things, suggesting power is transferred from their false god into those adornments. And we don't even know people walking around feeling comfortable with a red thread on the child's hand, or a scarf that is prayed for by a preacher. All of these are forms of witchcraft, and we have to stay far from those kind of practices because it switches the contentment and security of trusting in the Creator to trusting in another man. Bestiality. All right, that goes without saying. That is a capital offense. On the matter of witchcraft and spirits, Leviticus 20 tells you that, and the person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. Verse Deuteronomy 17:5 says, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you shall stone that man or woman with stones to death. And that's persons who participate in idolatry. We saw in the story in First Shemot where how seriously Creator views consulting with the occult and with sorcerers, right? And regarding the sexual urges, there are some men that are beyond control and nothing can pass them. And I just believe it's a case where it's some spiritual thing. There has to be some explanation as to why a man would find an animal attractive, or why a woman would find a dog attractive, or to replace that of a spouse. It is overemphasized in scripture that sacrificing to any god other than the Creator is utterly forbidden, and that will bring destruction. Right? So let us stay and walk wide from these practices. 21 to 24. Any comment on those three commands? All right. 21 to 24. Do not tread down a sojourner or oppress him, for you were sojourners in the land of Mizraim. Do not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them at all, if they cry out to me at all, I shall certainly hear their cry, and my wrath shall burn, and I shall kill. I shall unalive you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. This is like a threat. The Creator is saying, don't cause these people to bawl. Anyhow, you cause that person to cry. The vengeance will be wrought. In one case it says it should be sevenfold. Right? Is this a threat? So we have to be careful about the downtrodden, the fatherless, the widow, right? But there's also something I'm seeing, that your wife shall be widows and your children fatherless. So in other words, why is it that the wife shall be widow and remain widow, and the child should be fatherless? Your children will be fatherless. Is it saying that if you do the wrong, your wife will not be able to marry again? And is it that to say that if you do this such evil, your children will never have a father? Right? Because this is some grave affliction, when you abuse people who cannot help themselves. So we have to be careful how we deal with these people. It continues in 25 to say, let's read 25. Oh, and another thing, we need to remember that we were strangers. It's very important that Israel is reminded that they are strangers. Because when you remember that you were in a position of great need and need for deliverance, then it will spur you to treat others much better. So Israel must never become to others what they were to Egypt, meaning being treated badly. The Creator takes the cries of those people seriously, and He promised that He will surely hear and answer with burning wrath, even to the point of unaliving the oppressor, and so that their families will also taste pain. So when we do wrongs, it move on to our families, our children. Just the thought of that should cause us to want to do right at all times. All right. And that's a message to us today that foreigners, migrants, widows, we treat them good, single parents, and these people are a direct test for those who claim that they fear the Creator. All right, let's go into 25 to 27. This part deals with loans. If you lend loan money to any of my people who are poor among you, well, let me read. For that is, it says, verse 25. If you do lend silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you are not to be like one that lends on interest to him. Do not lay interest on him. If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge at all, you are to return it to him before the sun goes down, for that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What does he sleep in? And it shall be that when he cries to me, I shall hear, for I show favor. So we're talking about lending, and when we there's a suggestion that I'm seeing in this, that when you lend, you're to lend to your people first. So don't lend to foreigners before you lend to your people. Don't lend to a rich person before you lend to a poor person. And when you lend to them, do not treat them harsh in a way that you want to charge interest for them. Right? Don't try to take back the money or claim back the money by taking any collateral they have, because sometimes the collateral they have is the only thing that is of value. Right? So if you think that you take back anything from them to match what they owe you, well, you better give it back, because if the sun comes down on you, you're in serious trouble. Because if they ever cry to the Creator, you don't want that person to cry to the Creator against you. I'd like to ask you, do you think it's right to lend to people of a different faith while persons that share the same faith with you are struggling? Because, you have some persons who will lend a stranger, but they will not lend their family. And you wonder where they get that kind of practice from. Is that they're afraid that the family will not pay them back? Right, so we have to deal with our brothers first. If we can't deal with our brothers, good, we can't deal with strangers. Good. All right, 28 and 29. Do not revile an Elohim, nor curse a ruler of your people. Do not, when I was reading this, I thought they inserted this in it. Do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your sons. right? You should not revile the Creator nor revile the ruler of your people. I think there's somewhere in the Greek New Testament that says, servants, obey your master, and anything that your master say you're to do. I don't agree with it, right? Because uh, what we are it's reflective of the slavery that our peoples went through, and we have to understand that that particular Greek New Testament was written by the same slave masters, and they beat the slaves until they accepted that as coming from the Creator. So we have to be careful. All right, a lot of commands. What other commands we have? We are at verse 30.
Brother, I want to go back to the part when it says, if your father commit, if your father does, if the man does something to afflict the widow or the fatherless, and you're saying that if this person does anything, then it will reflect on his children, so we are to be careful. But I don't see where the children and the wife are punished. To some extent, it's not like they're punished. This man was wicked and he afflicted someone else, so he lost his life. The Most High killed him, so his wife now becomes a widow, and his children becomes fatherless too, because that's who he was afflicting. So now they're in the position that his victims were in. They're in the same position, fatherless and widows.
So that's
does it mean that they are suffering because of him and what he did?
Well, it says, my wrath shall burn, and I shall unalive you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows. Your wives, that means they're more than
dead, so therefore his wife is gonna become a widow.
So that's the punishment when you do wrong and you are.
But why should the wife and the children suffer for this man's sins?
Well, they don't. He is the one that applied the suffering to them, because he caused them to be fatherless and without a husband. He's the one that do it. It's not really the Creator.
So one has to be careful who one is married to.
Yeah.
Because whatever punishment is meted out to them, your children and yourself shall face that same judgment.
Exactly. So, and the worst thing now, what could make it worse though, if they remain widows and remain fatherless, meaning that nobody take them up. If nobody takes them up, that means they remain widows and fatherless. For me, I believe that it's better to. Yeah, my heart goes out to widows and fatherless more than any other set. All right, because it's not a nice thing to grow up without a father, especially when you experience it. Right? Widow, when you actually, there's a saying that whenever a man is with a woman, when she moves on to another man, she will never listen to that man, right? Because her former husband is alive, right? It's like the power of the semen actually caused that woman to rebel against any other man. So the matter and the practice of intimacy is very strong and powerful. And so until that man dies, then she will not listen to the man. Anyway, that's not in the text and that's not in Torah. So let me get back. Right, but it's very important to know that the relationship, you try to engage in a relationship that one that honors the Creator, and that the person will live a life of righteousness, one that does not abuse the downtrodden, that will cause their family to be husbandless and fatherless. Right. Thanks for sharing that. Where we know 30. Were you finished with that regarding the widow? Yes. All right. So
Yeah.
we do 30 then. Likewise, you are to do with your oxen, with your sheep. It is to be far. It is to be with its mother 7 days. On the eighth day, you give it to me. Oh, that is actually a continuation from 29. When it starts like likewise, is it relating to it? Do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your son. Likewise, you are to do with your oxen, with your sheep. Right. The idea, the instruction about firstborn is already given earlier in Shemot. So it is here repeated. When you see something is repeated, it is actually a stronger highlight, and it could be highlighted so you know that it's the same way you deal with sheep and oxen. The firstborn is given to the Creator. It says, "Do with your oxen, with your sheep. It is to be with his mother 7 days." Because there are persons who remember there's a command to say you can offer a goat that is up to 1 year old. That means if the goat is 11 months, you can offer it same way. Or if it's 7 days, you can offer it same way. Well, here it's actually saying no.
I
Let
don't think it
let
would
let it
need to be
stay with.
offered 7 days. What if it is it
Well,
stays with its mother
it is not to
until the
be
eighth day?
right. So
Then what
maybe
if it is given unto the priest? Offering it up to the Creator doesn't necessarily mean it is to be killed, because he require all the firstborn. So what if the priests are the ones? It is set apart and given for the priest to keep until such time as it is needed to be sacrificed.
right. So this is actually protection for young animals.
Because I think it would make sense to keep it away from other animals that may harm it, cause it to lose a horn, an eye, or anything else. For it to be free from blemish and for it to be spotless. You separate it from the rest of the other animals.
Yes, yes, yes. It has to be separated. And these animals, 7 days and younger, they just need a mother. They are not ready to be separated from their mother, right? And there are some people who they are just about profit and trade, right? And if it's some money, they will do it. So the first week, I believe, completes its initial dependence. It's just like a baby. Once a baby, I realize is 1 week, 2 week, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That baby does not need to be separated from the mother at any point at all, because that's what the baby is accustomed to, right? And any separation, I think, would be cruelty, because that's what the baby is accustomed to, maybe in the womb for 7 to 9 months, right? With animals, it seems as if after 7 days, it can be separated. I know the eighth day, it can be separated. And I think there's also the separation with circumcision that's done on the eighth day. It just came to my mind. So there's something about 8 days. All right. Are we at the end of the chapter? Oh, yeah, there's one more verse. 31. And you are set apart, men, to me, and you do not eat any meat which is torn to pieces in the field. You throw it to the dogs. Right. So, you know, I'm seeing in another text where it says, like Exodus 11, but against any of the children of Israel, no dog shall move its tongue against man or beast, that you may know that the Creator makes a distinction between Mitzrayim and Israel. Anything about dogs again? You shall, do not eat any meat that is torn, right? So no matter how hungry you be, avoid the temptation to consume that kind of animal. All right, so we're at the end of the chapter. We've spent enough time. So I have an end of chapter quiz, but in the interest of time, I'll just tag it to the video or send a link so that we can actually measure if we're actually remembering anything from these lengthy, exhaustive laws.